Hi everyone, #1 Marmaduke fan here. I was reading the Marvel previews and saw this ad and I got triggered so hard. But I've gotten in my safe space. I've calmed down a little bit, gotten in touch with my feelings, and now that the triggering feelings are moving aside, now I want to talk about it. So this is an ad for the Mighty Thor Volume 4 trade paperback. And in this, we have Lady Thor saying to unworthy Thor, and I guess some other fake Thor, "Step aside, boys. Let Thor handle this." So, I said a while ago that I don't want this to be like an anti-SJW or anti-feminist channel. I don't want to come across as wanting to bash on those people all day. I want this to be an art critique channel and a story-focused channel. But ever since my first video, what I've come to realize is you can't talk about story and art without topics of social justice and feminism being forced into the conversation eventually. This is a very powerful and influential philosophical movement, particularly in the American university system. So, in short, I can't not talk about it. I can't avoid talking about these things forever. It's the elephant in the room. So, today I want to issue a challenge specifically to feminists and SJWs. And if you're not one of those, you can still take on this challenge if you just want to clown me a bit and prove me wrong. But here we go. There's a reason why this is unheroic, and I can prove it. You might say, well, this is kind of Lady Thor asserting her strength and independence and letting the boys know that she's a strong hero too. So to the people who are advocates of social justice and advocates of feminism, here is my challenge to you to maybe help you see what I'm seeing in this picture. I would like someone to find for me, maybe in the history of DC and Marvel comic books, an example of the reverse of this specific scenario, of the men saying something like this to women. If you can find an example of that in the history of any character currently owned by Marvel and DC Comics, I will donate $100 to hurricane relief efforts, either in your name, or if you don't want me to put your name on the check, then I will I'll make the donation, then I'll draw a little meme kind of making fun of myself, and I'll write like score 1 SJWs or score 1 feminists. $100 to hurricane relief if you can find a male hero doing that to female heroes at any point in any character's history owned by Marvel and DC. So even if it comes like from Timely Comics or some other weird little company, but they're currently owned by DC or Marvel, I'll count that. If you can find an example like that, male hero says that to female heroes in the history of literature, poetry, movies, ancient Greek myths, then let's say I'll donate $50 if you can find it in the history of literature from the dawn of time. So let's be specific, because if I'm going to issue this challenge, I want to make sure that you find something which is what I'm looking for. I don't want to be so specific you could never find it, but I want to be specific enough that it is actually a parallel of this. So let me get my pen. #1, male hero has to say it. And to make it as Tumblr friendly as possible, we could be talking about a person who has been coded male or has been assigned the male gender at birth. But #1, it has to be a male hero. #2, I think I thought about whether I could make it generic enough that it could be males to anybody, but let's make it a 1-to-1 parallel. Speaking to females who are protagonists, females who are part of the protagonist team or part of the protagonist's army. You know what? It doesn't even have to be protagonists. It could be just any group of women. So skip that. Just any group of females. He's saying to the group of females something to the effect of this. It doesn't have to be these exact words, but what are the key things? Step aside. So something to the effect of step aside. Move out of the way. Get out. Back off. Move aside. An order. An order telling them to be gone, essentially. Any kind of be gone, move, bleep, get out the way. And then the second dimension is boys. So it has to be in specific reference to their gender. Ladies, broads, women, little girls, move aside, little girls. Okay, so part 1, the command. Part 2 makes explicit reference to their sex. And then part 3, okay, Thor can handle this. That's essentially just a boast. So, move aside, little girls. This is a job for a real man, or this is a job for Superman, or this is a job for me. You know, it's something about how awesome I am. I am awesome. How do you know I'm awesome? Well, because I'm ordering you aside because you're little girls, and I'm so much more awesome than you are. Now, if you are thinking, but wait, number 1 Marmaduke fan, the problem with that is that reinforces patriarchy. That reinforces a set of values where men are more special than women. So what Thor is doing is she's upsetting the patriarchal norms. So I get your argument, but here's the thing. Show me the example of that happening. And what we will have is an example where we have a character acting unheroically. So I need to clarify that too. This can't be an instance of like a sexist says this, and then he's immediately knocked on his butt. And then the whole team learns the lessons. See, guys, we need to be nice to girls. Girls can fight too. You shouldn't be sexist. It can't be something where the moral of the story is sexism is bad. You have to find an example where the moral of the story is, ain't it great this guy is such a sexist? What a awesome badass. He's really letting those girls know. Okay? If you can find that, if you can find these 3 things, begone, ladies, real man's work, and the tone of the story is, what a hero. You should aspire to be that. What a cool dude. What $100 to hurricane relief efforts if it's a Marvel or DC comic book character, $50 to hurricane relief efforts if it's in the history of literature ever. And I'll draw a picture clowning myself, maybe with like my butt hanging out or something, and saying, you win, guys, you won. All right? Here's why I'm so confident I don't think you're going to be able to find that. Because this is completely unheroic. A hero doesn't need to tear his teammates or other heroic individuals down to make himself feel better. And what's so triggering about this, what's so upsetting about this is I already knew there was like this feminist back and forth about Lady Thor, but here is Marvel Comics trying to convince me to buy this book. Someone had to put this image on the cover, write those words, and point the speech balloon at Lady Thor's mouth. That didn't magically appear there. Someone had to write that and decide that goes on there. Someone had to decide that this was the image that they were going to put in the free Marvel Legacy ads to show to me, to convince me to buy this book. And what is being presented to me as the main idea of Lady Thor trying to convince me to buy this book is this unheroic, petty moment. This has nothing to do with feminism and gender as a social construct. This has everything to do with a hero being a character with empathy and concern for others. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I don't think I addressed very clearly why I think this is a problem regardless of gender. So if you're saying, but Marmaduke fan, if a man did this to a woman, it'd be problematic because it's punching down. But if a woman did this to a man, it's punching up. There are 2 possibilities. Possibility 1 is what might be called the umbrella anti-feminist. So under this, you could include maybe like MRAs and MGTOWs and kind of traditional Christians, but basically men aren't women, I'm running out of ink, and women aren't men. So if you agreed with that there's a biological distinction between men and women, then there might be, some case to make that there are differences between what a man might say to a woman and what a woman might say to a man, right? So there's the umbrella, but the problem is that's not the social justice or feminist view. The contemporary, at least, I guess there's the TERFs, right? The trans-exclusive radical feminists who say that there's like no such thing as trans women. You have to be a woman biologically to be a feminist. But under kind of the more mainstream view, then gender is a social construct. And I want to refute this now, or present why I'm just not buying the intersectional feminist argument. So, if gender is a social construct, and Lady Thor woke up this morning and she's happy with her cis identity as a cis woman, well, how do we know that unworthy Thor is unhappy with his identity as a cis man this morning. I mean, I know he's got the beard. I know he's coded male. I know he's got the big muscles that say male, but we're not just talking, when the ever-expanding acronym, you know, it started LGBT, and now it's like LGBT, QQ, I, TT, AA plus. I might have gotten it all, but included in that, included in the idea of queer might also be gender fluid. So it's not just that you transitioned or you had a surgery, but gender fluidity could change from day to day or from hour to hour. So as far as Lady Jane knows, these guys woke up this morning and they're no longer happy with their identity as cis men. These might be trans women today, at least in their mental consciousness, and maybe they just haven't had time to grapple with their gender identity given all the fights that are going on. So if it's really true that gender is merely a social construct, then how can Jane's sort of yippee-ki-yay, hooray girls, we can do this feminism consistently accept that you can direct derision at these boys for being boys when you don't know if they're boys that morning or not? Now, you've probably heard the meme like, I identify as an attack helicopter. And, you know, then the left will say, well, the only people who make that joke are people who are, you know, cis-normative or are, you know, bigoted against trans people. But behind the silly joke is a serious argument. The serious argument is that once you get to the point that gender can be anything and gender identity can change on any given morning when you wake up, then there's no more room for deriding men based on their gender. There's no more room for humor at the expense of men saying, haha, girls are awesome, boys are dumb, because you don't know if they're boys anymore. So this is a bigger idea, but I think this is yet another example of how the problem with social justice can never go away, because social justice doesn't understand people or what it's saying enough to give us a consistent way of treating other people with decency and respect. It always says political correctness is about decency and respect, and if you're against political correctness, you're literally against treating people with kindness, but it can't define people or kindness specifically enough so that we don't know how to treat anyone. I think this is inevitably going to lead to the self-destruction of the movement. There can never be peace within social justice. Take all the alt-right away. Take the Christian church away. Take the Orthodox Jews away. Take the Pepe memes away. Take all their opposition away. And within feminism itself is contained this fundamental contradiction which does not allow it to continue. That all was my stream of consciousness, which is completely irrelevant from the challenge. So we can debate that, we can talk about that in the comments, that bigger issue, but the challenge itself is find me a male hero saying something to this effect to female characters where the point is to portray the male hero as cool for being a sexist. There, I said it. I'm not #1 Marmaduke fan. This is my challenge to the internet and specifically to social justice and feminists. Good luck.